An American policeman named Abraham Smith discovered a baby in a trash can and saved his life. After 25 years, when he was no longer a police officer, he got an unexpected call that would forever alter his life. Oregon is where Abraham Smith was born and reared. He always had a kind heart and was tenacious in his pursuit of his goals. He was a very curious and busy young man in his teen years. Despite residing in a big city like Portland, he was constantly trekking in the nearby woods and parks. Abraham was quite brave to venture so far into the woods till he came across rivers and waterfalls, but he was scared of coming across a bear. Abraham's parents advised him to pick a career after high school to pursue. He had few uncertainties. I aspired to work as a cop. He never had any interest in firearms as a child or ever fantasized about engaging in a shootout with bandits. Abraham was more concerned with safeguarding the neighborhood and its residents and finding ways to make a difference without harming anyone. However, he was conscious of the fact that, as a police officer, he would also be required to take direct action against individuals with malign objectives. Abraham didn't give up on his ideas, though. He studied the law extensively, learned how to shoot, and could recognize various drug types. He also tried to interact with people in the most polite manner possible. The young police officer completed all of the demanding training required by the school, as instructed in the handbook, but he was unaware that the real world would soon put his commitment to helping others to the ultimate test. Abraham Smith continued to perform on Portland streets for many years. He conducted normal patrols, took part in narcotics-related investigations, and occasionally pursued thieves through the neighborhoods. But the policeman's life was changed forever on that day, which began normally. He drove away from the police station. He moved leisurely around numerous Portland neighborhoods, observing everything that was in motion that morning. The police entered a residential neighborhood on the outskirts of the city when all of a sudden he heard a really strange noise that drew his attention. There weren't many people in the area walking the streets at that time of day. The majority of the locals had already departed for work. He made the decision to follow the sound while feeling alert. As it approached closer, it got louder and clearer. Abraham made the decision to exit the vehicle in order to more carefully and calmly try to identify the noise's origin. Although he was unsure of what was happening, it seemed like something that should be looked into. He followed the noise to a busy intersection renowned for drug dealing and violent crimes brought on by disputes between rival gangs. And the officer was particularly concerned about this complex regional history. He prayed he wouldn't need to draw his revolver as he made his way through the neighborhood, keeping his hand near to the holster. Abraham felt anxious. I believe that anything may occur at any moment. He noticed a gathering of individuals who appeared to be in great distress as he approached the corner. They all began speaking at once as they rushed toward Abraham when they saw him. They were prompted to clarify what was going on by the policeman. One of the women in the group pointed to the dumpster a few meters away while already crying in her eyes. Abraham approached her, already thinking it was a drug delivery, but as he neared her, the sound he had earlier heard resurfaced. He initially believed it to be a cat, but after getting so near to the source, he realized how serious the situation was. There were the noises of a baby being left in a garbage can with several bags of rubbish and blowflies. Abraham felt astonished. He had never seen a child in that condition before, so he started to question why those people hadn't taken the infant away. The fact that the boy could still weep despite his tremendous weakness was a crucial indication that Abraham still had a chance to save the boy. The policeman couldn't believe what he was seeing and was only able to reflect on how terrible it had been for someone to abandon a small creature in such a humiliating setting. Abraham had dealt with true stories of individuals abandoning babies at fire stations, giving them up for adoption, and even donating them to orphanages during his career, but this was the first instance of doing so. The policeman inhaled deeply, collected his thoughts, and then started to move. The policeman heard the boy crying, took off the debris that was covering his little body, carefully extracted the infant from the trash and picked him up in his arms. Despite still showing clear vital signs, Abraham could detect something peculiar, as the youngster looked to be breathing more slowly than usual. Given that the young youngster had been half suffocating under the trash for an unknown amount of time, he reasoned that it might be expected in such situation. There was no time to waste, so he immediately dialed 911 while holding the infant tightly and keeping him warm in his arms. Even though there were nurses and paramedics on the rescue squad when the ambulance arrived in a matter of minutes, Abraham felt he couldn't leave the vulnerable child again. He observed the boy in his arms, who appeared to be more at ease now. He obeyed his heart's guidance and got into the ambulance with the rescue crew and rode with them to the hospital without ever looking away from the child. Abraham came to the realization that without giving the infant a name, he was no longer able to care for him. He deserved to be recognized as a unique person. Then he started referring to him as Gabriel, like the angel. Abraham wasn't particularly religious, but he felt that the name wonderfully captured the innocence and tenderness of the young child. To ensure the child was healthy, the doctor performed a number of tests at the hospital. Abraham was most concerned that Gabriel had been unwell as a result of spending so much time in the trash. Fortunately, despite all, no symptoms or indications of sickness were discovered. Just now, the doctor called attention to a possible allergic reaction, redness, on the boy's back. It was very painful for the officer to have to leave Gabriel alone in the hospital while he went back to his house and family, but Abraham made a point of stopping by every day as long as the youngster remained under medical observation. Gabriel slowly regained his health and grew stronger. The boy's situation was handled by the city's social workers, and Mary and James Wood, a young couple, soon decided to adopt him. They were from Eugene, a town south of Portland, and they fell in love with the youngster right away. And of course they were also struck by the narrative of his desertion. The boy was given the name Gabriel throughout the adoption procedure after the couple discovered that Abraham Smith had been the policeman who had located him. Abraham was overjoyed when Mary and James decided to maintain the name since they liked it. He was happy that the child had swiftly found a home, but sad that he could no longer see him every day. Abraham felt a connection to Gabriel when seeing him in the hospital and also a small sense of responsibility for him. Gabriel was raised in a loving, caring home. His parents, Mary and James, never concealed his adoption and subsequent abandonment from the little kid. He didn't get frightened or enraged as a result of this rejection, but he couldn't help but wonder what would have transpired to have him thrown in a landfill outside of a major metropolis. As much as he envisioned other scenarios, it would never be enough to quell his curiosity about this concept, which tormented him. Although Mary and James were aware that question might never have an answer, they still wanted to do something to ease their son's heart and mind. To do this, they contacted the Portland police one day and requested Abraham. Then they discovered that the official had left the corporation and was now a ranger in one of Oregon's state parks. Sometime after the event with Gabriel, Abraham had asked to be transferred. In a sense, his interaction with that infant had reawakened in him the urge to work in policing that was more in line with his way of life. The officer had gone above and above his call of duty to secure Gabriel's safety and rehabilitation, and the couple recalled all of his concern. They persisted in getting Captain Phillips' contact information, who was now retired but knew where his ex-cop might be. Abraham, in my opinion, was more of a social worker than a policeman. Before giving Mary and James the contact for Abraham's new division, he said, "But at least he's among the beasts in the woods now. He must be happy aiding tourists and adventurers away from the sordid world of crime." They discovered over the phone that Abraham never forgot what had occurred that day and that he frequently wondered what would have happened to the child following his adoption. As a result, they planned to meet in Abraham's cabin, which is close to a national park. The reunion would be wonderful. Gabriel was both excited and anxious to finally meet the guy who had saved him from the trash. He was curious as to why the officer had shown such concern for him. Finally, the meeting started. Abraham was very moved to see Gabriel all grown up and in good health, such a contrast to when he had been rescued. He told to the young man that he never had children and that the first time he held Gabriel in his arms was the closest he had ever felt to being a parent. I know it seems absurd, but something suddenly shifted. When I saw my child in jeopardy, I experienced some of what a parent must feel, he claimed. Then, Gabriel hugged Abraham and said he needed to thank him in person. In order to personally forgive his biological mother, the child stated he wanted to see her. He also said he wanted to know whether Abraham Smith knew anything about his background that might help him find the woman. Abraham's smile evaporated at that point. Anyway, he said that he had made an effort to find out who his mother might be. She intended to investigate the maternity wards in Portland for the names of all the ladies who had given birth in the 2 to 3 months preceding Gabriel's abandonment, but Captain Phillips had disallowed her from doing so. Abraham said, "Because of sarcasm like that, I left the corporation." The captain said that if I wanted to fix the world, I should go after real bad guys. It's been so long now that I don't even know if it's possible to trace it. The boy felt sorry for that information, so he wouldn't be able to find his mother and understand what had happened 16 years ago. At the conclusion of the meeting, before the boy and his parents, Abraham sorted chips for 2 full days and made phone calls for another. On a Thursday night, it was already 9 o'clock when he discovered that a woman called Lola Heatfield had given birth nearly 2 months before Abraham discovered the infant in the trash. This chip seems to be the greatest option out of all the ones that have endured the test of time. He called Mary and James Wood that same evening. He claimed that the woman resided outside of Cottage Grove, possibly in the middle of some woods, and that they would have to travel there to speak with her because her name didn't have a phone number. Mary and James were astounded to learn that Cottage Grove was so close to where they lived. If this were the case, Gabriel may have nearly grown up next to his birth mother without even recognizing her or realizing how much closer she was than he could have ever imagined. The following day, Abraham picked up young Gabriel by driving his vehicle up to Eugene. After that, they continued on a dirt road and crossed a few streams until coming across a tiny settlement of huts populated by people employed in the local lumber industry. They were able to identify the residence as being owned by Lola Heatfield by asking the residents a few questions. A woman under 40 years old who was smoking a cigarette answered the door when they knocked. She had a dubious appearance as she closely examined Gabriel. As a park ranger and former Portland police officer, Abraham Smith introduced himself and asked the woman whether she had lived in the area around 16 years prior. Yes, the woman replied, adding that she intended to one day forget the city and everyone who had ever lived there. When Abraham prompted her to explain what had transpired, the woman admitted that she had been a terrible person and that the reason she was now a destitute widow was because she had earned that destiny. "Sir, I cursed myself. Absolutely, I say. God punished me before I passed away." Lola added, "I married a bad man, did bad things, and now I dwell alone in this end of the globe with my remorse." "Did one of the prior actions you did include a child?" Abraham inquired, making an effort to sound amiable. Lola bent down as her eyes expanded with tears. She started crying and declared that her time had arrived. "You came to have me arrested, cop?" In an ever more angry voice, Lola added, "I told him that we were going to pay for what he did, I told him." Abraham advised her to take a deep breath and inquired as to what the "we paid" part was all about. Who exactly were us? Lola revealed that she had wed Jeremy Heatfield at the age of 18, a man who had undergone a complete transformation since beginning to cut wood in the forests for the company. Jeremy was not only unhappy to learn that Lola was expecting, but he also had suspicions that the child was not his. The entire pregnancy had been a true misery, and Lola had faced numerous threats every day. Jeremy threatened to leave the country or refused to allow her leave the house. He insisted that she get an abortion because he would not take the chance of rearing another man's child. Lola was concerned about the threats, but she believed that once the baby was born and Jeremy saw how much the kid resembled him, his attitudes would change. They might even revert to their previous state of being in love as a couple before their wedding. However, the reality was different. Jeremy even prohibited her from giving the child his last name when he was born. According to Lola, the man developed extreme paranoia and made the decision to rob him one night when she and the baby slept. Lola rushed to call the police after the man went home without the child out of desperation, but the man stabbed her and told her it was too late to worry about the baby and that he had done what he wanted. When he insisted on having an abortion, she lacked the courage to comply, and that they should immediately leave the city as soon as they can. 1 year later, Jeremy passed away in a workplace accident in the lumber industry, sparing the woman from living in fear, but the truth is that she will never be able to forgive herself for failing to shield her son. He fell into a profound despair and still wonders how his son would have turned out if he had lived. 1 year after moving in, "This is the only thing I live for, sir. A curse for the wrong I let to be done to an innocent child. And right now you're here to put me in jail," she replied. She was crying at this point in the story, but so did Gabriel. After that, Abraham grabbed her by the shoulders and reassured her that she wouldn't be detained. The two embraced after 16 years. The last time they did so, Gabriel was just a newborn. "I survived, Mother. I survived." Now take a deep breath and pay attention to what I'm going to say, because no one is here for fun. "I met your boy 16 years ago and he's here to meet you," said the young man. Lola lifted her head and watched Gabriel once more. Abraham Smith felt a sense of completion at the end of that day unlike any other in his life. His life's most challenging situation had resulted in an investigation that was now concluded. If you enjoyed the story, please click the like button. You'll likely feel the same way about the next video that just started playing. Till the next video, have a good session.